Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Midwest Gaming Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Garris, Panel Director of the Midwest Gaming Classic. And this panel from the 2024 Midwest Gaming Classic show is about the making of Godzilla KAIJU Wars. One of the most prolific arcade hit designers of every era, Eugene Jarvis, currently leads top arcade manufacturer Raw Thrills. Eugene will be talking about the creation of their new VR game, Godzilla KAIJU Wars VR, the most cinematic arcade game experience ever. And at the end of this panel presentation, I will show you what it looks like. If you haven't seen it before, it's going to blow your mind. It is a huge machine, and it is fully immersive. And you know what? Enough of me talking. Why don't we get to the panel?
Hey, there he is. Let's go. Yay, we did it. It's always awkward when the round of applause stops as the person is still walking down. Like, he was there, and we're we restart the applause. Let's even
Hey man, I'm your moderator. Nice to meet you, man. How are you?
All right, so everybody, this is going to be fun. We're going to talk to Eugene Jarvis, and he has one of his esteemed people, actually the lead artist and character designer of the game, Raymond Rosario. Raymond, a round of applause. Just for reference, we'll ask Eugene a few questions. I think we're going to see a little bit of a presentation. And then if any of you have any questions, I'll come around with a mic, so feel free to get as creative as you want. Actually, Eugene, I have a question to start things off here.
Cool.
I know we're here to talk about the making of Godzilla KAIJU Wars, but my first question to you is, why the hell is Smash TV so difficult?
It was made to monetize people like you.
And you did. Congratulations, you took all my allowance. Week after week. What I loved about that game is the double joystick. Like, was that something that you thought of early on? Like, how did you?
Yeah, that actually started out in a game called Robotron, which back in 1982. And I was really into, there was a game out in 1980, I think it's called Berserk, which is a robot fighting game, really cool game. And I was always really frustrated because it only had a joystick and a fire button. And so if you were trying to fire at someone, you had to point in their direction and start walking in the direction and then kill them, So it was very, very dangerous. You had to kind of walk into danger to shoot them, and then I just somehow felt like, wow, man, maybe just shoot with a joystick, and another joystick, if two joysticks move and fire.
Yeah.
So that way you could back away from them and still shoot them. You had complete freedom of motion, and I thought that control would take over the world. Actually the next game to use that was Smash TV. like 8 years later, man, this is so cool, and nobody wants to do it. But then the PlayStation came out, and with their DualShock controller, and so you could move and fire with different buttons, and so it became a standard, years later, and now every console has a move and a fire.
Yeah.
I love Smash TV. It's a fascinating game to me. It's like what you go to a barcade and it's one of the first games that I want to play. I don't know why. It's just fun. Even today, it's just so fun to play with a buddy.
Yeah.
It's just shoot 'em around. It's how gory and ridiculous it is. Awesome. I love it.
I'm sorry. Does Smash TV have anything to do with RoboCop? Just I'll buy that for $1.
Exactly.
Did they steal from you, or did you steal from them?
We stole from them.
One of my favorite lines in the whole game.
Yeah, no, we're shameless. No, and RoboCop was, I think it's still my favorite movie. I mean, and there's just so many funny lines in there, and we just kind of like the Smash TV host, which is
big money, big prizes.
right, exactly. And he's like the host of this game show where you're killing people for toasters. And,
Tell them what they want.
right. It seemed, and that was a commercial it was a parody commercial from the RoboCop movie. And so yeah, that was, it was fun, man, and nobody sued us, so that was fun.
Fair enough. Yeah, so we'll get to a lot of questions, but let's talk Godzilla KAIJU Wars. It's out. Is it here? Can people play it?
Yes, it is down on the main show floor. This is, I guess, the only place in the world you can play it for free. I think.
Round of applause for free. $3.99 is our favorite price. We love it. So take us through the creation of the game. Like, when did you come up with the idea and get the whole Godzilla IP, everything like that?
We had actually were big Godzilla fans for decades, and we always wanted to have an opportunity to do that, and it just seemed like the technology wasn't really there to kind of feel. You want to like feel the size of Godzilla, feel the immensity of him, and really it's only VR technology really that can give you that sense of scale. And you look around and like, oh my God, and if it's just a little lizard on a screen, it's not that threatening, So really, VR is, I think, enabled that us to do a real Godzilla game.
Where would you say we are in like VR gaming? Like, I love playing my Oculus at home. I still get that like queasy feeling after like 25 minutes, half an hour, or like headaches or whatever. Like, where would you say we are in the lifespan or like the development of virtual reality games that will like eventually become the norm for us?
Yeah, it's it's been a very long and torturous path to VR. I mean, the first real VR system was made in 1968, 69 at MIT, it could make like dotted lines or something, and 20 hertz or something. I think there's been huge revolution in the last 10 years. I mean, I don't know if any of you people remember, there was a big VR wave back in around 1990.
I remember it.
And exactly. Guy, actually, you want to put some slides up? Can you read that?
I don't know if I can read
that. Who owned a Virtual Boy?
Yeah, the Virtual Boy, yeah.
There we go.
Right,
and Virtual Boy fans in the house.
And the Virtual Boy, it's funny, I was doing some research on that, and doctors, several like scientific experts state, it was really a nauseating system, and gave people giant headaches. It had, it was like 300 by 280 pixels, 4 shades of red. And actually, scientists said, they were worried that it would lead to migraines and possible permanent brain damage from Virtual Boy. So that's pretty crazy. So, but we got a long way from there, and this guy named Palmer Luckey invented the Oculus headset, which was a huge step up, but still the first couple were pretty crappy. And but now the technology is really there. I mean, we're getting 4K headsets, 120 hertz refresh rates. We have these incredible NVIDIA cards that blow out I don't know how many polygons, but it's really a big strain on a computer because it has to render both the left eye and the right eye at 120 hertz. Normal game would run at 60 hertz with just one, both eyes do the same thing. So it's a real big strength for the computers, but NVIDIA's really making some cool stuff now. So it's out there, and I really think Godzilla, our Godzilla that we did, being a motion simulator, is really cool, and you're kind of seated in this motion simulator, because a lot of VR games you're walking around and you're like, like you can't see the real world, and you're walking into your stove and turning it on or something, or walking off a stairway or cliff or something. But when you're seated there in a motion simulator, you can, have a full intense experience, and we can have just a complete joyride where we're not limited to being on the ground. In our game, you're on this helicopter gunship fighting the kaiju invasion.
Total side note.
Yeah.
Who has a home VR system here at all? Who's played the game Richie's Plank Experience? Oh my god. Okay, if you want, exactly to your point about just simulating just like a weird situation. So basically, Richie's Plank Experience is you go up in a elevator into the top floor of a skyscraper, and then the elevator door opens and there's just a plank. And so the idea is you walk on the plank and you look down and you're like 100 or 200 stories up. You know what I mean? And it messes with you. Like, you have to try this at some point in your life. Please, because it really, I'm standing in my living room and I feel like I'm literally up. It's the weirdest.
Yeah, it's totally horrifying.
It's horrifying, yes.
You're like on the ground.
Yes.
But you feel.
But then you don't.
You put the headset on and you're just terrified, and it's crazy.
So let's bring that to KAIJU Wars. Like, how do you create that realism that I'm actually seeing Godzilla and interact?
Right. So it's just really the screen, the choreography of the game, and giving you that opportunity to, you want to have exciting kind of scares, so you just don't want to see Godzilla 10 miles away and slowly approach him, You want to go around a corner and oh my god, and it's like his foot is bigger than you are, and so you get a sense, you look up and you can see the scale of these monsters, and that's really the feeling, we're flying in a helicopter, so we're going to the top of the Tokyo Tower, we're going, all over the city, and you're really, a lot of scenes are at huge heights, but also we do them on the street level, we're everywhere.
So how do you think of those scenes and just ideas? Take us through that process of writing out the game, developing the game, especially for VR.
Yeah. You want, the way we look at it is you basically make a list of the 50 coolest things you want to see in the game. Okay. 50 cool events. I want to see, I want to be, standing underneath Godzilla and he's getting ready to hit me with his atomic breath beam.
That'd probably be number one on the list.
Yeah. You want to be, at the top of, his tail swings and knocks, a 30-floor skyscraper onto you, You're chasing, we have a lot of kaiju, Megaguras, Gigan is in there. And, you just, whether you're flying or on the ground, we're in the water, you just see the scale. In VR, you can see that scale and get that sensation of being on the plank, which, it's just, that's a big deal.
So Raymond, I have a question for you. When it comes to you now, so you're the lead artist, character designer, right? So you get this list, or you see this list, or involved in creating this list, and you're like, okay, now I gotta visualize this and bring this to life in a way. What's that process like?
It was definitely a challenging process, especially when Toho has this, you get to design your own Godzilla. And so I thought originally we were going to just take an existing Godzilla from the movies and then put in our game, but no, we want you to kind of design your own Godzilla. And I was like,
Okay, whoa. Please take us through that process. So now you have this license, you're like, okay, you can create your own Godzilla. What are you thinking? Take us through that.
well, I can have a slideshow.
Amazing.
You guys see it?
I want to see this actually.
So you can see here, oh man. So bad at yes. Oh shoot. Hey Justin, don't worry. This is not my computer, by the way. It's my friend Justin is helping me out here. Awesome. So you can see over the years, Godzilla has evolved over the years, just his design. And so the challenging thing was, what design we get to pick. And by looking up the different versions of Godzilla, he's been around since 1954, and you can see that he's evolved. And I just knew that when designing Godzilla, we wanted to have him menacing, especially up front. So here's like my earlier designs of Godzilla.
Can I just ask a couple questions as I'm seeing this? Is fascinating. So like,
Sure.
how, when you were told, okay, you can create your own Godzilla, right? Like, how true to the previous Godzilla did you want it to be, or did you want to take as many creative liberties as possible?
Well, Toho was very specific about making sure that the likeness of our Godzilla matches, like the ones that reminiscent of the ones you see in the movie.
So you see it and you'd be like, yeah, this is Godzilla.
Yeah. So this is just earlier stages when I was in the design process. Of course, what you see here was going in a completely wrong direction, and so it was. But I got a lot of feedback from Eugene, from Toho, and just through the remaining my team members. And eventually, when it came to this design, it was this design when we sent to Toho, and this is when we saw this version of Godzilla. They said, yeah, this is starting to look like, having the likeness of Toho Godzilla. There's a certain characteristics, physical characteristics we wanted to alter. Like, for instance, his tail should be twice the size that I have here, and his legs should be 3 times the size that you see there, and a much longer neck. They definitely liked, what his face looked like, but just, he has a more uniform teeth instead of pointy, sharp teeth. And so I think they wanted to go for more like the classic look of Godzilla. So when I made all those changes, when it came to this is pretty much the Godzilla you see in the game, and the only changes I had to do with this Godzilla was just his toenails were a little bit too long, but overall, they said just shorten his toenails. They're more, maybe
You sent Godzilla to the spa, saying, getting ready for the KAIJU Wars.
So when they saw this Godzilla, then this is the one that they really liked. One of the compliments they told me was like, yeah, this is like a Heisei era looking Godzilla, and actually I took it as a compliment because I really think the Heisei Godzilla is really cool. And
Are the spikes in the back more rounded too?
Yeah, so that was another thing from the previous Godzilla. They said specifically, like, classic Godzilla has a more, rounded tip dorsal plates. And if you look at, like, the 70s Godzilla, even up to the 80s, you'll see his dorsal plates all rounded. But, and I think I have, this is the final model, which is a view of it. So you can see his toenails are short there.
How long does this process take?
It was a lot of back and forth. I remember Eugene and I, and then just through the team, it took about maybe almost 2 months, because there was a lot of back and forth going through the different versions of Godzilla. And it takes time to sculpt and fit those details.
Everybody's got their own opinion of Godzilla. It's like, is his head too skinny? Does he look too much like a lizard? Does he look like Frankenstein? Is he too fat? And so, everybody has a different vision of their ideal Godzilla.
Yeah.
So, but we wanted something that, to strike fear in your eyes, to be scary and powerful, give off that kind of vibe. And I think Ray really, you can see the power and I think the dorsal plates are kind of scary. And I think what he ended up with is maybe the best Godzilla.
I don't know about that. Thanks for that. There you go. Let's go. At least in this room, that's for sure. Okay, so you land on Godzilla. And so lead to this process.
Yeah, so there's we're going to be using the other monsters from the Toho universe, Godzilla universe, such as like Manda, Megaguirus, Gigan, and these characters are from the Millennium Era. And the reason we chose the Millennium Era is probably the most current era of monsters, good variety.
And did you have the freedom to use whichever of those characters you wanted in the game?
Yeah. The only thing Toho asked for us is to make sure, like, if we're going to choose a certain era, we don't mix and match the different eras. And the reason being is because in case of our there was a story narrative to our game, they wanted to make it consistent, the continuity consistent, so not to mix certain monsters together.
Yeah, both Taylor Swift and Godzilla have eras.
Yes. This is Godzilla's Eras tour. We got it. Okay. Understood.
So Toho didn't have like assets that we used to create their other monsters, so that gave me the opportunity for myself and Eugene to kind of to design the other monsters from scratch. So here's some. And here's the high-res renders from Manda, which is the giant serpent creature. And then Gigan. This is from Gigan from Final Wars, the movie Final Wars. And then we were able to use the Mechagodzilla from the 2002 movie.
Nice.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, and we equipped them with rocket launchers.
That's
Lots
awesome.
of fun things.
Like video game fans, you love those kind of Easter eggs or like surprises, right? So like I wouldn't have expected Mechagodzilla to show up in a game like this, right?
Yeah.
So it's like really cool that you had that freedom to be able to bring these characters into the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Here's Megaguirus from the 2000 movie, Godzilla versus Megaguirus. This was a very fun model to create, just because if you see Megaguirus in the game, it has a real presence. It's just real threatening looking because all the spikes and all that. But that was a fun character to create.
I'm just curious, total side question. Sometimes in different IP or different universes, right? Video games have the capability to add to the canon a little bit, right? Is there anything that this game that you were allowed to sort of like just add, any little wrinkles, anything at all to the Godzilla lore through this game?
As far as like
Anything, the story, the characteristics, anything like that.
They give us the opportunity to create the grunt characters that the player encounters all the time. So that was really cool. And so Eugene and I, we were able to have that kind of freedom. Of course, they would have to improve the characters and see if it fits their world. But yeah, that was a great opportunity to be able to create that for our game.
Yeah, the other thing that's a little different is normally Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are antagonists.
Yeah.
And also some of the other kaiju, there's different there's rivalries amongst the kaiju. So it's rare that they all get together. So here was the thought behind this game was, mankind is with global warming and pollution and toxic radiation, we're destroying the planet, and all the kaiju, they need to combine together to destroy civilization, to save Mother Earth. And so this is kind of in some ways, the final war between the Godzilla, the kaiju, and humans.
Until this becomes so successful that we have another war.
Final War 17.
Final War 17. But I assure you, the 17th one will be the last one. Yeah, exactly. So, just curious. So this game is in Dave & Buster's locations, like
Yes,
okay.
It's just getting out there. I guess by the end of next month, it'll be in every Dave & Buster's.
So, to create the game, giant machine goes to those kind of music places, Dave & Buster's. What was the thought process? Is that what the business model is?
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, we're arcade people. So
Yeah.
it's there's kind of this been the birth of this like mega arcade concept is I guess it started actually in the late 1980s, but it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and now there's this kind of a war. Like you put your game in the arcade, and somebody else puts a bigger game in the arcade. Someone else has a bigger screen, like some giant stupid Space Invaders screen or something, and which we did. So it's like an arms race, and so with Godzilla we're saying, we have to make like the hugest, edifice ever created for the arcade.
I was gonna say, like, the world's largest Pac-Man game,
Right,
all of
right.
this is in Dave & Buster's now, right? Like, you can't have a smaller machine for Godzilla than Pac-Man.
Yeah, right. And
I'm sure this came up, right? Like, it's like, you can't have it would look silly. Like, Pac-Man's this giant machine at Dave & Buster's, and in a smaller physical machine, Godzilla, like, it would look odd.
exactly. So we had to just, I don't know, it's 12, 13 feet tall or something.
Towering over
Actually, it's
Pac-Man.
we did a really cool topper on it. We're kind of inspired by some of the pinball toppers out there,
Yeah.
Except our topper is like, 3 feet tall and, 5 feet wide. Cool illuminations and stuff. We have 2 giant 65-inch screens on it, and, all kinds of bling.
Yeah.
Godzilla big bling, like everything has to glow. Like, your seat has to glow, your control panel has to glow, your gun has to glow, even your ass has to glow. But everything must glow, so.
When we post this panel on YouTube, that's going to be the headline. Even your ass has to glow. That will entice people to come and watch the whole thing. And thumbs up on the back there. That's awesome. I am curious, like, just the idea of, like, you were talking about, like, jump scares.
Right.
What is the science of that? Like, how do you incorporate that into the game? How often? Like, what is the thought process to scare the player?
Right, so first of all, you have to kind of lull the player into, kind of a routine, and have enemies appear at a certain regularity, minor enemies, and once you're kind of lulled into this routine, then the player is right to be surprised, And so you can use different devices that can, the enemy can drop down from the sky. We actually have a reveal in this game where he comes out of the Tokyo River and just emerges, throwing ships around and stuff, and it's really crazy, very, very dramatic. But you have to have the timing right. You can't I'm gonna jump out of the closet now. It's like, it has to.
Out of the river.
It has to be,
before
quick, but not too quick. Because humans, if it's too quick, you just go, what was that? So you have to get that timing right, which is really important to get the scare correct.
I love that there's a science behind that. Like, okay, this is maximum fear. This way to do it, which is awesome. What about just creating a game? We're gonna get to questions, by the way, I promise. I want to get as many questions from the audience as possible here. But I'm curious, just creating a game for virtual reality. Like, what are the challenges in creating like an entire world that someone can look around in 360 as opposed to just watching a screen playing a game?
Yeah, I guess the initial problem, which very well known to artists like Ray, is all of a sudden, instead of having like a 60-degree view of things, you have a 360-degree view of things. So you need like 10 times the amount of world out there, because at any point, the player can turn around and look any direction, and so you can't Hollywood the thing where you have the front of a building, but there's no back of the building, or you're looking out this way, but behind you is just the soundstage, and so you really have to create like a believable world from many different angles, and that's a pain in the ass, but it can be fun.
But a fun pain in the ass. What about from your point of
Yeah,
view?
it's definitely a challenge, especially for the monsters, right? Because when you're in VR, they're like 300 feet tall and about the size of the building. So for an artist, it's trying to make those characters look good that up close. They literally are really up close to you. So making those characters look good and making sure that the game runs at a good over 60 frames a second.
It's actually, we're 90
or 90 frames a second. That was certainly a challenge. And yeah, the whole, now that the player can look anywhere. There was a time in the game where we didn't have like a player ship or a cockpit, because if you look at Jurassic Park, you know you're inside a Jeep, but when you look forward, that's all you're looking at, is the thing that's in front of you. But now that people put up VR headset, and they're just constantly looking around, and it's like, okay, well, we have to have a ship so the player knows what he's sitting in. So yeah, there's a lot of those little details like that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's just the dynamic range of, you see something 5 miles away, and then you see Godzilla's toenail, and you check to see if it's properly trimmed.
Properly curated now.
And so you have to have levels and levels of detail. You can't just have some, kind of fuzzy image because you never get close to it. So it really is very demanding of the art.
Can I just say, I just love the image of everyone in this room playing this game next time. When you see Godzilla for the first time, your first thought's going to be, look at those toenails, now I know the backstory. They used to be longer, now they're not. Jason, why don't we just take the mic around? Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to start.
Okay, please.
My own microphone. So
how selfish of you, Jason.
I know. But I know, and I played this game last night, and it is absolutely incredible, and if you haven't played it, please do. But one of the first impressions was the thought of, how is this going to be for people who experience motion sickness? And now is that, and having played it, I'm going to say probably the first 20 seconds is like my brain's trying to fight it a little bit, and then after that, I'm in the world and you don't even worry about it. But how was that a consideration when you were designing the game?
Well, it's a huge consideration because that's probably the number one problem with VR is in a lot of people and sometimes everyone at certain times experiences nausea. And it's kind of like, if you eat at a restaurant and you get sick and experience nausea, you don't come back to the restaurant, And so we want people to come back to our restaurants. So it turns out there's certain scientific principles at work here, and one of them, obviously, and this is a problem of a lot of home VR things, is that if you're in motion in the game, you're flying around or whatever you're doing, and if you don't have motion to simulate that, your body starts getting sick because there's this conflict between what you're seeing and what you're feeling. And so with the motion simulator, we can match that where you can kind of fool the body into believing that the sensory matchup is there, and that vastly reduces the nausea. The other thing is having air blowing at you appropriately. You feel the velocity, you can feel some of the acceleration with air also. So it's another sensory reinforcement to reduce the nausea. Another issue is if you start moving the horizon around a lot, that really, really gets people. So you try to keep the horizon fairly stable. Obviously, we do some crazy maneuvers in this game, but you can't do that many of those because you can do one, but you start doing 2 or 3 in a row, they're going to start checking out their breakfast. So that's a big deal. Also, we're running at 90 to 120 hertz. We try to get 120 hertz, and that just it decreases the feedback in the game, decreases the lag. So when you turn your head, rather than you turn your head and then the video goes, it's right with you. And again, if the video is not turning and you're turning your head, your brain doesn't like that. And then that can, basically, I think your brain feels that you're hallucinating and wants you, that you're poisoned. So it induces the nausea that creates, it wants you to barf out the poison you just ate because you're doing some weird shit. And So it's really, it's something that we really concentrate on, and I think there's maybe 5% of people just can't deal with VR at all. But I think for like Godzilla, I would say 90-95% of people really don't have an issue with it. The other thing that works really good with it is basically you're shooting, you're blasting the enemies. And so there's kind of this, a lot of times we have kind of a trail of enemies, kind of like, Galaga. We have these, we use kaiju, going along a really cool pattern, and you kind of follow them, and your motion follows them. And so you're kind of, you feel like the motion makes sense to you, and you're fixed on like the center of the screen, following the motion of the kaiju, and so you're not, again, thinking about the horizon line is moving. Also, when you're in a downtown area, there's all these buildings blocking the horizon line, so you don't have to worry about the horizon line effect there. So there's a lot of, very subtle things in the design that help to really cut down on that nausea feeling.
Can I ask a follow-up just real quick? I have not played, I will be playing today. How many senses were accounted for? Like, you just mentioned like wind.
Right.
How many senses were accounted for?
So I guess you got wind, audio, video, and then 3 dimensions of, we actually have 7 channels of sound, and 3 dimensions of motion.
So I can't smell Godzilla.
We don't have a smell.
I was going to ask what does Godzilla smell like?
Right, you can just kind of smell your pit if you get here.
Just don't take a shower. Do not do that. Do not do that. I ask because like in the sports world, I work for ESPN, we are at the point where VR experiences, I can sit myself in a section at Madison Square Garden and experience all 5 senses of that game that's happening, the Knicks game or the Rangers game or whatever, right? We're at that point now. So I'm wondering if we're getting there in games where every single sense will be accounted for.
I think we're working, a lot of them. Obviously we could do temperature too.
Oh my gosh, that'd be incredible.
But I think the smell thing is, and they do actually have smell generators, and they have, there's different flavors of smell, different smells of smell, and they, can kind of mix, just kind of like you mix RGB and video, you can mix various stenches to get the smell you want, or perfumes, and but
you can really go down a rabbit hole.
But there are. It's a consumable thing, and right now the technology is pretty expensive.
Amazing.
It doesn't work that great.
Who's got it to anyone? Just raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you.
I'm really looking forward to playing the game in a few minutes. I've got a 2-parter. One, which VR titles inspired you in the development of your VR title? And are we going to see raw thrills on Meta Quest 3 or the new Apple version, or are you waiting to have that happen in the future? What was the first question? Which VR titles inspired you?
Right, so we thought I don't know if any of you guys have ever played, I thought some of my favorite titles are Beat Saber, which I guess everybody loves. And that was, kind of got a lot of people into VR and just felt really good. There was a first arcade VR simulator game. Was a game called VR Rabbids. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this in an arcade. And it has some really cool motion and I love the kind of the seated thing, and with the motion simulator, I felt that was really cool. So I kind of ripped that off for our games. We also did a game, King Kong at Skull Island. I don't know if you guys seen that one, and that was we learned a lot in that one, and we kind of got into these super monster things. I think King Kong was available and he was cheap, so we went for him. But incredible monster, really. And we had some great artwork from the artist Vito, and you know, so we kind of got into the monster thing, and like, okay, what's the next great monster? And we were always great Godzilla fans, so that was kind of how we ended up with Godzilla.
If we're going for large monsters that are cheap, I guess Danky Kang will be the next VR. Just gotta be fantastic. Who's next? I think we got a kid there. Yes, let's.
Right. Here's a T-shirt for questions.
Oh, a t-shirt for, oh, now the incentive is high. Okay, now the arms are gonna raise in the air now.
We got a shirt factory.
How exactly are you going to make sure people don't get confused by the temperature? Like if you're in a cold room, but in the VR game you're in the middle of a volcano?
Yeah, we would have to have obviously, you know, giant heaters and coolers.
How far away are you? You wonder how far you the ice breath and the fire breath of putting on the VR.
What do you mean ice breath?
How far are we?
Mom got the question wrong.
You know, actually, we didn't really think about that until now. But I think it's a cool dimension that actually would not be that difficult.
So,
although the fire itself might be a problem.
Is the thought like Godzilla shoots fire breath and you're feeling it?
Yeah, and he basically.
Is that what you're, okay.
Yeah.
And then if it's ice breath, you feel the like coolness, like an air conditioning?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that could be done. I mean,
That's kind of cool.
That's doable.
Does he get a credit for that? Like almost like assistant creative or something?
We'll have to talk to his agent.
Yeah, I want to talk to his agent.
Well, welcome to the Raw Girls design team.
Who's got the next question? All right, here we go.
Can you actually see your body? Because for motion sickness, sometimes even if you're like going around, people get freaked out if they can't see their body. So can you see your physical body? Like in your body? Yes.
Like if you go like this and see your hand kind of thing, is that what you mean? Or look down and you see your torso?
Yeah, we actually we do. We kind of have an avatar in Godzilla, but in the Kong and also in the Kong thing, you could look down. You could see your hands on the screen, and you can see some of the attributes of the game, like the seat and the bar. And the Godzilla, we have the gun in the game.
And actually, we do have a model that is supposed to represent you, the pilot.
Yeah.
So if you, depending on what seat you're sitting in, if it's first or second player, just when you play the game, just look to your left, and you'll actually see, you know, the first player next to you or the second player, depending on what side you're on. And
Yes, I think that is true. It helps. I think it helps ground you in that reality, and I think it really helps if you're grabbing onto something, like a bar is like a Kong game. You grab onto it's like a safety bar, and then Godzilla, you're grabbing onto the blaster controller, and you can feel that, and it's also you see it and feel it, and so that really reinforces the illusion.
3 more questions?
Let's do a quick one. So, because he's working on Saturday, Ray gets raised for this, or bonus or overtime, right? No answer?
Way to put him on the spot, man. Way to go. Way to go.
I'm gonna come back up to the front here.
Over here?
Yeah, all right.
So
Yeah, Mr. Mel.
Here's another
And then we'll take one more from the back, and then we'll be done. How's that?
Thanks.
Hey, Eugene.
Yeah.
I actually got to play this game. You took the sound tape. I was waiting for it.
This is a mid-question toss. So you ask your question and be alert.
But you took it down to Raw Girls, so I had to play a prototype of this game. And I'm curious in terms of like the intensity of the movement and the motion. How do you kind of decide what's both safe and reasonably fun for people to actually engage with?
You just try shit out, you start out, you try to be extreme as you want, and then, if there's problems, you have to dial it back a little bit, but, we try to, our default is, 11, but, sometimes for safety reasons and other issues, and just jiggling around people too much can make them sick too, so. we just have to, you try it out, you test it, and, is it too little, is it too much? And, trial and error.
All right, one minute.
Going back to Smash TV for just a minute, could you speak on the Pleasure Dome or the lack thereof?
Actually, I can blame that on my co-designer, Mark Terrell, who went on to do NBA Jam, and some pretty cool stuff. But he was always kind of a con artist, So actually, he did this game, I guess back in on the 2600. I think it was called the Sneakers or something, or Apple II, and there was some myth, legend about these artesians were in the game, and you had to do this to get the artesians, and that to get the artesians, and it was just a way to make people play the game more, and they never actually existed, But it's funny. So so Martin was like, "Hey, let's try this with Smash TV." I think originally we wanted to do the Pleasure Domes, but just ran out of time, And we thought about it, and we actually tried out a few looks for the Pleasure Domes, and it just was always disappointing. It's like you think of like some concept of like heaven and paradise, and then once you turn it into pixels, it's just not that cool. And so in some ways, like keeping it a myth, it's whatever you imagine, and so we would drop clues at different levels, like collect the keys and this, that, and the other, and turned out all that was just bullshit, but and trying to make it play the game over and over again, but the weirdest thing about it though was this was in the very early days of the internet, and early 90s, and people would actually post, people would always say, how do I get the Pleasure Domes? I tried this, I had 17 keys, I played it 30 times, how do I get them, do they exist? And people would lie and say that they got to the Pleasure Domes, people would go, yeah man, I got the Pleasure Domes, what's the problem, man? It was really cool, and so you have people lying about the existence of the Pleasure Dome, so it gets reinforced. It's kind of a self-reinforced myth of the Pleasure Domes, and so we were. I remember one day Mark and I were sitting in his office, and we're kind of like, reading the messages from the players and stuff, and like, oh man, I still can't get the Pleasure Domes, I'm like. Mark and I go, God, what do we tell him now? He got all the keys, he did this, we're laughing about it. I guess our boss was like standing in the hallway listening to this, and so he never knew there wasn't Pleasure Domes. So we got into some deep shit, and we actually had to make some Pleasure Domes. And a version of the game and release it. And it kind of sucked. It was just, it wasn't paradise. It's like your vision, everybody's vision of paradise is different,
I was gonna say, once Smash TV VR comes out in 2 years, the Pleasure Dome will be Godzilla comes out and just destroys everything. Surprise!
One more question.
Back there.
Okay.
Hi, yes. First of all,
Don't get t-shirts.
huge fan. I just want to say hi. And then also, I got to play it last night. This was just amazing. Like one of the most amazing things I've seen in an arcade. Right? I've been a fan of arcades since they were starting. And I just had a question. As things are getting bigger with this, like something with VR, as you're designing it, do you also kind of put any thought behind not making it as big? So why there's the mega arcades, there's also seems to be a resurgence of arcades and other arcades. Do you think how can we also design this so we wanted to make something smaller but still have that feel, or is it something where you just think, no, this is what it's meant to be and we don't want to strip it down and take away from that feeling?
Kind of the cool thing about VR is you put your head in the goggles and you don't see the cabinet or anything. it's kind of a lure to get you in there, but once you have your head and goggles, it's the same game. So yeah, we're thinking about doing some smaller, perhaps a smaller footprint version of the game, so they can put it into smaller arcades and smaller locations, and but we want to keep the motion and all the things that make it cool. So we're trying to come up with a design for that, but it's probably going to be a year or two before we get that done.
All right, good luck for that. Sure, all the way back there. This is gonna be the Tom Brady of throws right here. We're gonna try our best. Maybe wrong audience to say that.
Okay, this is it. XL here. This might make it, right? Did my spiral go in here?
That's bad. Not bad at all. The Packers are going to sign him to a tryout tomorrow. All right, big round of applause for Eugene for having us all. So it's on the floor now, like upstairs, so people can play now.
Yeah, I guess we're all like the pinball games.
Yeah, you guys know where that is in the third floor, on the floor. Go ahead and check it out. But yeah, thanks for being here. Awesome.
What do you think?
That's quite the thing.
Huh?
That is quite the thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of this week's panel. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and learning about how the game Godzilla KAIJU Wars was developed. I know that I really, really enjoyed the panel. I enjoyed being there and learning about the development itself. And actually, I did not play the game, but my partner, Jason Paul, who is the audio tech for the room, he tried it out and he enjoyed it very much. He, as you had seen in the presentation of the panel, he had asked Eugene about certain things and had mentioned that he had tried it. And the video proves that he had tried it. So I hope you enjoyed that and that inspires you to seek it out. I know that it's at Dave & Buster's. That's one of the big places that it is going to be at. So hopefully it's already been rolled out. I believe at this time, which is July 21st of 2024, they have been rolled out to Dave & Buster's. But don't hold me to that. I don't know for sure because I haven't been to one. I live just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and I know that there's a Dave & Buster's on the west side of Madison, and I'm yet to go and see if it's there. So, you know what? Until next time, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And remember, if you like the show, please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. And remember, we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcast platforms, and also on YouTube Podcasts. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and game on.